Howdy, freelancers. So today is actually episode 20. Big milestone, right? Well, it's not that big, right? 20 days in a row. It is what it is. But hey, we'll keep trucking on, right? I would love for you to go ahead and go to rezzz.com/iTunes and subscribe to the podcast. That would help me great. And as well as find the comment section. Go ahead, pop in a comment in there, but ask me a question. I'll bring it onto the show, and I'd love to be able to answer it for you. It would also help in having more and more people find this podcast. And yeah, I mean, the more people that are asking me questions, the more value you guys are all getting, right? So with that being said, today's question is the age-old question. How do you manage time wearing so many hats as a freelancer? Well, this really is a very loaded question because it's so dependent upon you and your business, right? But I'll try to answer this in the best way possible, give you guys as many suggestions as I can, and help you work through it, right? So there is this huge sense of overwhelm at times. I get it, you get it, but it's important to remember what you need to get done and what you would like to get done. So Google and many other companies have adopted this 80-20 rule. I myself like to employ this rule too, which basically says that 80% of the time you work on business stuff, right? But 20% of the time you work on your own stuff. I use this 80-20 rule in regards to 80% client work and 20% rezzz, right? It fits nicely really into a 1 day a week is business and the rest is client work. If you want to span that over every single day, it's basically an hour and a half every day that you work on your business versus your clients. I definitely encourage you to do that. When I first read about this rule, that's how I kind of boiled it down to. But back to my point about want versus need. This is the difficult part of this, right? Because this is where the shiny object syndrome comes into play. Needs are things like admin work, billing, your sales process, and so on. Basically all of the things that runs a business successfully. Now, your wants are things like figuring out which social media schedule to use when you have one already, signing up for that webinar, or reading some business book that was recommended to you. It's really up to you to figure out what wants are important enough to become needs of the business. I often ask myself 3 questions to try to figure this out. The first question is, what sort of impact does this have on my business? The second question is, will this impact my business today, next month, or next year? So these first 2 questions are really related. It's important to remember what the thing you're looking at is going to do to your business. Is it going to affect revenue? It's going to affect profits? Is it going to just be a distraction? Is it going to bring in new business? Is it going to give you better opportunities to grow your business? So it's good to analyze these new things in that kind of way. And the third question I ask myself is, am I already exploring another rabbit hole, right? Because ultimately, sometimes these things are rabbit holes. So if I'm already concentrating on something already, I tend not to take on something else. I kind of put it in the back burner a little bit. And then once I'm done with one, I'll bring that back out. This basically helps me in figuring out those shiny objects. Now, as far as the actual hats I wear as a freelancer, I'm a developer, I'm in billing, sales and marketing department, podcast host, content publisher, I sweep the floors, I'm the founder, I do business development, and all of the other things that you have to do as a solo freelancer. It is hard to juggle it all, I'll admit, but I block out chunks of time each and every day to focus on all the parts. I pay close attention to my energy levels too. And this is so important for me so that when I'm in dev mode, my concentration level is very high. But posting on social and sending out paying bills, my concentration doesn't need to be all that high. I find that chunking out my time in every day, the same time every single week, I get into a nice groove. Sundays for me, I always plan out my week so that I can hit the ground running Monday morning. For client work, I stick to what I'm good at, right? If I need to bring in other folks that have other talents, I do. I integrate all things before I actually go ahead and offload it, right? So I allow the computers of the world to handle it. Things like tying my expenses into my bookkeeping automatically, setting up recurring billing for clients so that I don't have to manually send out invoices. I'll admit, there's plenty of other things that I should get off my plate, but I usually go until there's a point at which it's really painful, and then I adjust accordingly. The biggest takeaway for you to understand is the want versus need. If you're feeling overwhelmed with all of the things that you need to do, I encourage you to take a step back, take a 10-minute break, refocus on what's important for the next couple of hours, and then focus on that. So until next time, it's your time to live in the feast.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.